All right, Sam, you are now being recorded. Anything you say can but won't be used against you in any court of any law. So don't worry. Welcome to the Texas Titans podcast, brother.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
Well, okay. So here's what I want to do. So you are my first coronavirus conversation. I did an interview with Phil Burks that the audio may or may not have screwed up on. We're going to try to get that. But that was more of kind of just a leadership business, which I want to talk to you about as well. But also you are at the forefront with the Hand Up Network. And so I want to use this call for several things. One, I want to talk about your background. I mean, you've got an incredible history with in the nonprofit world and as it relates to leadership, everything. And you've seen these sorts of things before. I mean, Mercy Ships and your other endeavors. And now the Hand Up Network has become such a pivotal part of what we're doing out in East Texas to try to manage and mitigate some of this pandemic as it reaches our community. So I want to talk about that. But let's just start with who you are, your background, and how you ended up. And just full disclaimer, as a proud board member of the Hand Up Network, I got to sit in and I got to help hire you, so I'm a little biased. But I do want to say thank you for the job that you're doing on behalf of the board and Tyler and the East Texas community. You're doing a remarkable job even before this, but in this instance, you've really come through, Sam, in your leadership. And so let's talk a little bit about your background and in leadership, and then let's get into the nuts and bolts of what the Hand Up Network is doing, how people can help through, I mean, that's what we are, right? We're a faith-based intermediary. So we're kind of the conduit, the agency, if you will, for those people who are out there going, how do I help fight this invisible enemy? Hand Up Network is creating a channel for that. So let's talk about that. And then anything else that surfaces, brother, we'll cover it at that time. So with that, go for it, man.
All right. Well, just I guess a quick as far as the background. I'm a native Texan. I grew up in Dallas, but I actually went to high school in East Texas in Bullard. So I do have some connections here. But my secular expertise, I was a art specialist in the world. I worked with Hart Schaffner Marks in the Hart Marks Corporation for about 16 years. And then I ran a couple of apparel companies on the West Coast out of the Bay Area. And I kind of became known as kind of the branding guru. And so I worked with mainly most of the major department stores around the world, helping them develop brands from inception to to market. And so I've launched, I guess, about 47 brand names in my career and helped, basically do everything from designing to all the way to actually making sure that it checks out at retail. So that was kind of my background. While I was doing that, I served as an advisor for the MBA groups at Kellogg Business School there at Northwestern in Chicago, and did a lot of pro bono type of work, working with various nonprofits and so forth. And so I've always had a passion to try to help others. I never felt like I was actually being called to be a minister or anything of that nature, but I did feel like that there was a calling, that God was preparing me for something, and really never had really any idea. And I basically, my children were fairly young. We were living out on the West Coast, and we just saw that it was time for us to move back to an area that we were more comfortable with as far as just the environment where we wanted to raise our children. And so we moved back to East Texas. I was getting on an airplane every Sunday night and coming home on Friday night, but my kids were back here in East Texas doing really well. They actually started to thrive. The schools were not that great on the West Coast for us, and so we wanted to get them in an environment where they could to do well. And I will tell you, they were way behind. My poor daughter started in third grade back in Texas, and we were told the first month that there would be no way she'd pass her STAR test. And so the poor kid, 5 days a week, was going to tutors and doing everything. And that girl just graduated from University of Texas at Tyler, magna cum laude. So she's doing just fine now. So it was the right move. And so while I was doing that, I actually received a call. I was in New York, actually walking down Fifth Avenue, and got a phone call. I was helping the Lord & Taylor group up there develop a couple of private label brands. And I got a phone call from somebody back here in Tyler that knew me really well and said that there was a group just outside of Tyler called Mercy Ships that needed me. And it was kind of funny. I kind of knew of Mercy Ships. I used to work very closely personally with Jack Nicklaus, the golfer. And Jack and I had dinner one night with two gentlemen that were doctors that had done his hip replacement. And one of them had served recently on a Mercy Ship. And so that's kind of my basic knowledge of Mercy Ships. And the funny thing is they were based about 40 minutes from where I was and where I lived and where my home office was. And so I ended up going out there. I was told that they needed me for some reason, don't know what that was. And it was kind of one of those God moments. Went out and kind of understood kind of what was going on there and kind of helped them from a logistic management marketing perspective, because a lot of people had not heard of them. I mean, I living in East Texas and didn't even realize they were right there. And so one thing led to another. I was asked if I'd be interested in joining them, and ended up shutting my company down and taking over at Mercy Ships. And I first started out kind of helping them, focusing on marketing and advancement, fundraising, things of that nature, kind of my background expertise. And about 6 months into it, was asked to become the interim CEO, and then became the CEO of Mercy Ships for a few years. And we had 4 record years there, doing really well. But it made me realize that, God had been calling me, and it wasn't calling me as far as being a pastor, but he was calling me to utilize the skills that I've developed over my career to try to make a positive impact on my fellow man. In areas that were kind of unique maybe to ministry for some people. I am all about dotting the I's and crossing the T's. I want to make sure logistically that we're optimizing every gift that God had provided. And so I came in into Mercy Ships, and then later on I was asked to run a group called Medical Ministry International. We were running hospitals and teams and so forth in 80 countries around the world. And so all the logistics and all my background marketing and all that really was exactly what God was really preparing me for. And I kind of laugh. When I was growing up in Dallas, I grew up in the public schools, and schools started to get a little iffy. So my parents pulled me out and put me into the Catholic schools. So I went to parochial schools till I moved to East Texas. And my dad actually remarried when I was 11. And we grew up, my whole background in my family, we're all Methodist circuit preachers. In fact, my great-grandfather basically helped start almost every Methodist church in East Texas. He's a very well-known guy. He's actually buried over in Bascom, just outside of their White House, Chapel Hill area. Anyway, so kind of a funny story. So I grew up there, grew up kind of in the Methodist background. But when my dad remarried, he married a staunch Southern Baptist. So here's this kid that grew up in the Methodist world. I ended up going to Southern Baptist Church and going to parochial schools. And I tell you that story because once you take mercy, the challenges you have is dealing with people with very unique backgrounds, and they're all motivated through their faith, but a little different. And you haven't experienced life until you've had a South African Pentecostal in the same cabin with an American Catholic. So it's quite entertaining, but that's God's way of kind of preparing us all to do what we did. So that's a quick kind of understanding. And so I've kind of become known as kind of the guy that people call when there's a problem with ministry. I've dealt with ministries all over the world that have had everything from scandals to some real problems that have been uncovered by boards. A lot of it is related, and a lot of it's similar to a lot of things that happen in a lot of ministries. You've got a lot of people that care about, trying to help their fellow man or try to help people. But this concept of doing it as a ministry almost gives people a pass to do stupid things. And so I got a lot of those phone calls. And so over the years, I've kind of been known for doing that. And so anyway, I actually had 3 different people actually mention to me about a group that was here in Tyler that was, kind of going through a new phase. And you were a part of that. And I kind of came in thinking I might be able to help and just, talk about it. Next thing I know, I'm actually stopping doing what I'm doing, and I'm actually kind of taking over here. And what we basically did was kind of blew that thing up, and we have reorganized and refocused it as the Hand Up Network. The real blessing in all this, though, is that I've had many members of the groups that have worked with me at Mercy Ships and at Medical Ministry International and all these different groups that I've worked with that have actually have always called East Texas home. And so we've done all this work around the world, whether it be tsunamis, hurricanes, you name it. And a few years back when Hurricane Harvey hit Texas, many of us were actually in Rockport just soon after the hurricane hit Rockport. And we worked up and down the Texas Gulf Coast and were very involved. And we saw firsthand, the recovery in the state of Texas from Hurricane Harvey was not done by, outside national or international groups. It was done by local organizations working together, whether it be churches, civic groups, governments and so forth. And you see Texas is recovering. It's still recovering from Hurricane Harvey even to this day. But it also highlighted to us that, there was a lot going on in our own backyard that we could really impact here. And so this was an opportunity for a lot of us and a lot of our team. I've got some of the most experienced response team leaders in the world that are now part of the Hand Up Network. And so we've brought all that expertise from around the world back into our own community. And it's really a blessing to be able to develop this and do what we've done in many other places, but now be able to do it for our neighbors and do it for the people that, have really been so good to support us over the years, but also have the same similar type needs. And boy, it couldn't become more apparent when we're now dealing with this COVID-19 crisis.
Well, and that's what I want to get to now, Sam, because you have seen so many different types of catastrophes that you had to lead your organization in to do what you do in those cases. How has this one differed from the others that you've been a part of?
Well, the biggest challenge is it's in the United States, which is a first world country. When you're dealing in third world, poorest of the poor locations, you're dealing with more of a less literate society.
Mm-hmm.
And so in a lot of cases, they are so desperate for information and help that basically you can just kind of walk in the door and basically say, I'm going to help you. And they're like, okay, what are you going to do?
Right.
Whereas when you're dealing with it here in the United States, you've got a lot of infrastructure. You've got governmental agencies. You've got, local politicians. You got all these different people that all want to have a say, or at least give the appearance that they have a say. So they all have an opinion.
Right.
And so what you find is there are a lot more obstacles or a lot more challenges that maybe put up some roadblocks to actually executing what you need to do. Whereas when you're dealing in more of a third world situation, those obstacles really don't exist. You're just dealing with rampant disease. Most of it's poverty driven as well. So basically they don't have anything. And so you're pretty much building it from the ground up. Whereas here we're dealing with infrastructure, good and bad, that is in place. And so you're trying to still assess what's going on. And I have to tell you, it's very similar in that you have to think on the fly. If you're one of those people that likes to just sit in a meeting and everybody just kind of share ideas and kind of come up with a kumbaya session, this is not the work for you.
Right. And so based on what you've seen with the state response, because I know you're a part of not just what's happening in East Texas, but you're also privy to what's going on across the state overall. And again, having seen and led through multiple different catastrophes, how are we doing as a state with our communication, with executing on getting supplies and information, logistics? How are we doing as a state overall based on what you've seen throughout your career?
Well, I will say this. I actually almost maybe take it a step further. Let's talk about it from federal to state and to where we are. I will tell you that I have done press conferences in some pretty crazy places. I've had Uzis put in my face during these press conferences, by the way. So I've seen the press do some pretty crazy things. What you'll find out about the press is the press has a tendency, they're always looking for the scandal. They're always looking for the story where they can spin it and try to make it into something that, creates news sometimes. And so a lot of times the information that actually gets out there is actually not even close to what actually is happening behind the scenes. Right. What I will tell you is behind the scenes, I'm on the phone calls, I'm on the communications, I'm daily, in fact, right now it's almost hourly, working and discussing with everything from federal all the way through the state and local level. And what I will tell you is you could not be more proud of Americans and proud of the state of Texas for the amount of work that's being done. It doesn't matter what your political background is. Right. It doesn't matter what your affiliation is. Everybody is banding together. And I can tell you, it's a wonderful thing to be able to see because, if you just watch television, you're going to get a totally different perspective than what's actually happening. And so what I will tell you is there are challenges. There's definitely some areas that, we could certainly have done better, but the done better part is really more about who has ever seen this happen before. Right. It never happened in the United States. How in the world could you have known that all of a sudden a pandemic was going to basically, happen on the other side of the world, and all of a sudden because of air travel and everything like that, pretty much it becomes a worldwide epidemic very, very quickly. Right. And so that's very different than like when I was on the front lines dealing with Ebola. The thing about Ebola is if you get Ebola, you know it because the odds are pretty good you're going to die. Yeah. And so it's bad stuff. So, this COVID-19 is not that bad. So what has happened is it's a highly contagious issue. And so it got out of hand fairly quickly with a lot of people with community spread, with lack of social distancing and all that. So what I will tell you is I could not be more proud of the United States and especially the people in Texas that have responded. It is a very difficult thing to do, to all of a sudden be blindsided and all of a sudden be told you need to go home and shelter in place.
Right.
And oh, by the way, we need respirators and we need PPE and we need all this stuff. And so everybody has just been kind of winging it. And I got to tell you, there are certain people that are only geared for this, and there are a lot of people that are not geared for this. They can't handle the chaos that
Right.
has existed. Now, is the chaos somebody's fault? No, it's just part of what we're dealing with. And so the areas that I think we probably, are going to learn from this will be so much better. If this ever happens again, we'll be ready.
Yeah.
But probably the areas that's probably the biggest concern is PPE,
Mm-hmm.
because when they first saw that it was happening in China and in Italy and in places like that, the American response is your typical American response. We immediately started shipping stuff over to them to try to help
Yeah.
them. Unbeknownst to us, while we're doing that, it's sneaking in our back door as well.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden here we are. And so we do have some issues in the supply chain for PPE. I'd say that's the number one problem. And PPE, for those that don't understand what that is, that's personal protection equipment. So it's the mask and the robes and things that you need to wear to protect yourself while dealing with people that could possibly be infected and so forth. But we're catching up quickly. The testing side is another area that was kind of early out of the deal. But how can you prepare for testing for something that you didn't even know was coming or knew how to exist? So once it was determined what it was, I tell you what, they've jumped through hoops to get it done. In fact, in the state of Texas right now, we are increasing our testing 20% a day.
Yeah.
I mean, that's phenomenal. And a lot of it is because, President Trump has done a good job. He released the private sector to be able to do a lot of support for a lot of things. And what that means for testing in Texas is the commercial labs got very involved. And once the commercial labs got involved, I'm telling you, they're blowing and going. And they're dwarfing the amount of tests that could have been done at the state level. So there's a lot of good things going on. But I would say that, all in all, Texans should be extremely proud of what they've done so far. And oh, by the way, we're not done yet.
Yeah.
Please stay and do what you need to do, because we're still going up that curve right now. We're not anywhere close to being on the backside of this thing.
Well, and that's one of the things too that I have noticed that I've been pleasantly surprised with as it relates to the American response, because we are, I mean, look, that's in our DNA is liberty, freedom, that's who we are. Don't tell us what to do. And what it's reminded me of is, to me, the model for how a society should kind of interact and deal with catastrophe is the Japanese model. I mean, it's unbelievable how in lockstep and community-minded the Japanese are during the tsunamis. Great example. There was no looting. There were no riots. It was just all just order and calm and everybody kind of falling into lockstep. I think Americans, by and large, have during this, I mean, like, going to East Texas and seeing people walking around with latex gloves and masks is not something I ever thought I would see. Yet today I went to Fresh to get gas, and the guy next to me is in latex gloves and a mask, and he's not being hypersensitive, or it's just that's just the way it is. My wife, she was in the store this weekend, and she said she was in the minority. Most people are just doing what we have to do to remedy this and to do our part. And so, and it was interesting, having two college girls, it took a while for my oldest in particular to truly understand, when you come home from Alabama, there is no socializing. You're staying at the house. And literally the first night she's here, a group of her friends get together. And I said, yeah, no, I meant no one. You're staying at home. That's all that's being asked of us right now. It's the best thing we can do is to just stay put. Don't interact with anyone any more than we absolutely have to. And so I think that people have been pretty good about that, which has been kind of surprising in a good way, just because, and look, you probably saw it when it first started. There was a lot of I'm not going to get it. And if I do, I'll live. Kind of that, that's how we are.
Same guys that hang out on the beach during the hurricane.
Exactly. Or stand out and watch for the tornado.
Right.
So, all right. So, well, tell me this. Because the Texas Titans podcast, and then I want to dive really into the Hand Up Network after this. So, Sam, you're a longtime veteran of this work, and one of the things that I'm always trying to pull out of these conversations is leadership hacks, strategies, methodologies. For someone right now that is in the early stages of their career dealing with crisis management of this magnitude and trying to lead an organization through it, that, let's face it, in the best of times, if you're in the nonprofit world, you're trying to raise capital and keep the lights on when you're trying to do things that just it's a completely different animal than the for-profit world. But now we literally have an economy that's shut down. You've got people that don't know whether they're going to be able to make their mortgage payments or not, and so there's just more stress than even what normally exists for an organization like the Hand Up Network. So how have you assessed how you execute on your leadership, keeping the staff engaged? I know you've done a good job with us keeping your board informed, but kind of what is your methodology, and what would you tell that individual that may have just taken the reins as their first, of their first nonprofit that's having to deal with some of this?
Well, I think the first thing I would tell you is it doesn't have anything to do with whether you're a profit or nonprofit. At the end of the day, it's about leadership. But I think it's extremely important for everyone to understand that in order to be a good leader, you've got to be a good Indian. And so you've got to be willing to get in there and do the job yourself. And so, I have my entire career, whether I was in the secular world or in the nonprofit world, I've always tried to engage because it's so much easier to lead if you've been there and done that. And so it's very important for someone that is kind of just getting started and kind of getting out there. There's an old saying, preach as much as you can, but if you absolutely have to, go ahead and talk. And that's exactly what we're talking about here. To really get people to want to follow you and engage with you and listen to what you have to say, you kind of have to earn that. And you don't earn it through talking a good game. You earn it through action and people seeing that you're exactly who you say you are. And, you've heard it a lot, Jason, because you are on our board, but it's something that I communicate to our team. In fact, I just had our entire team on a Zoom call right before this. We got some exciting things getting ready to happen here in East Texas that we're running. But the whole point of it is that we have to continue to be who we say we are. And so even though the COVID-19 crisis has hit, the Hand Up Network is doing exactly what it was doing prior to that, but we just had to ramp it up and add additional things. But at the end of the day, it's still about seeking people that are going through a tough season in life. By the way, there's a lot more of those right now. And trying to get my hand up and help them. And so that's the most important thing to me as a leader, is that you have to communicate to people in a way that is both not through voice, but it's also through your actions. If you talk a good game and then there's no substance behind it, it's not going to matter. And I will tell you that I learned that lesson extremely well, even in the secular world, but especially when I started working in the secular world overseas. You mentioned the Japanese model. I would tell you, I think the Japanese model and the Texan model are very, very similar. There is a amount of pride and respect for the Texas culture that is above and beyond politics. It's above and beyond, faith. It's above and beyond anything. If you're a Texan, you're a Texan. And by dog it, you'll defend it till you're blue in the face. And the Japanese are the exact same way. And so the culture that is starting to spread across the U.S. that's more progressive, there's more of, they're just looking for a reason to, pick a fight and all that. That doesn't work in this type of scenario. We don't need all that stuff. There's no time to sit there and nitpick everybody to death. We're trying to save lives, and that's the lives of you and me and everybody that we love and that we live around. And so the actions and what you're actually doing through your actions really starts to come to light very easily when you have a situation like this. And so as a leader, I would encourage anybody that's just getting started is immerse yourself in what you have a passion for. Be willing to go just roll up the sleeves and do the job. I don't care if you're a midline manager or you're a CEO. It doesn't really matter. The people that you're leading are going to look to you as an example. And if your example is you sit behind a desk or you sit behind a door and you're not out there and engaged, they're not going to think that you truly know what's going on. And that in turn is going to hurt your effectiveness as a leader.
Right. Absolutely. Well, all right. Now, Sam, let's get into the details of the Hand Up Network. First of all, give the audience just a description of what we do at the Hand Up Network, how we help East Texans and beyond if necessary, and then how we are fitting into the overall relief effort for East Texans with this COVID-19 issue.
Okay. Well, the focus of the Hand Up Network, as I've mentioned, is really helping people that are going through a tough season in life. And so that is a variety of different kind of people. We have people with PhDs that come through our door that need help, and we also have the guy that dropped out of school at second grade and he's living on the streets under the bridge. And so we get all types, and we get people referred to us quite often, but we also get people just showing up the door. And so we put them through an intake to really do a personal assessment. We focus on what we call the 5 fingers of focus, and there's 5 key areas that we look at, and we assess where they are today, and then we start to explain to them how we operate. And I will be very upfront, we are not a welfare organization. So if you're coming here to get a handout, we're going to give you a hug, and well, actually I'm not going to give you a hug right now, but normally we give you a hug and we'd send you on your way, because unless you're serious about helping yourself, it's been proven. Pick a country that I've served in, it's the same everywhere. Unless you're serious about actually trying to help yourself, we're going to have a really difficult time helping you. And so those that are serious about that, they come in, they join our organization, we provide them a mentor. The mentors sit down with them and really start to assess a life plan. And then we enter them into a variety of different programs. I mean, we currently have over 50 programs right now designed. They're not all active at once. They're only designed to be used when a person needs them. And so every person that's ever come through here, we've yet to have one journey that's the same. Everybody's different and unique, and their background and what's affecting them is different. And so we have to mentor them along the way. And so our relationship is a long-term relationship. And so there are organizations out there that basically they want to try to help you today, and that's awesome. But we want to help you today, but we also want to figure out, why are you in the situation you're in today? And let's try to figure out how to get you out of that situation so you're never back there again. Good example of that is we just had this last week, I had a lady that is a disabled veteran, and she had called multiple organizations in the area, and she hadn't eaten in 4 days. And the answer that she got was she wasn't available, or they weren't available to help her. And so she was referred to us. And we're not a food bank. That's not exactly what we do. But I can tell you right now, we're not about to let anybody go 4 days without eating, especially a hero that's disabled, because of the dedication and service that they've done for our country. And so I actually personally went to actually see this lady, assess to make sure it was a legitimate need, and it was. And we went and got her food and got her taken care of. And what had happened was she was scared to death, and all this stuff was happening. She was over preparing to be Santa and do all this stuff, and she ran out of money. Now all of a sudden she got everything but food. And so the poor lady is in tears, and she didn't know what to do. And so, thank God we were able to help her, and truly the tears in her eyes when I showed up with the bags of food. And, she got her disability check on the 1st, and she's back up and running, but she's now also entered into our program. And so we're going to take a look at it and make sure that whatever happened to get her in that spot, we're going to try to make sure that never, ever happens again. And so that's the gist of what our internal programs do. Then we also have our response teams, and our response teams focus on 4 key areas of work. We focus on community outreach. So we have teams that go out and find people that need the type of services that we offer, and let them know what we're doing, and try to get them in and get them basically out of the situation that they're in. We have community response teams that actually we get a phone call from a Rotary, or get a phone call from a church or a government agency that there's somebody in need, and we'll go out and assess what that need is, and then we'll put together a team and actually go out there and take care of it. As an example, Deputy Fire Chief Frost and Tyler contacted us back in December, and a young lady that's got some severe medical problems that have led to her gaining a tremendous amount of weight, and she was bedridden. And so the fire department would get a phone call every time this poor girl needs to go to the doctor. The fire department would come out, and it would take 8 people to basically lift her and carry her to the ambulance. And her house, the porch was falling apart, the handicap ramp was not usable. And they had reached out to a lot of different groups saying, hey, can you guys fix this? And they couldn't. So Deputy Chief Frost actually called us, told us about it. We went over, figured out what it was. We put together a team, went over there and rebuilt the porch, got the handicap ramp going. And now when the fire department shows up, they're safe, and this young lady is getting better. And by the way, she told me her number one goal, ultimate goal, is to get well so she can come volunteer with us. So that was pretty cool. We enjoyed that. So we have teams that do that. And then obviously emergency response, we've responded to everything from tsunamis, hurricanes, tornadoes, you name it, we've done it. And so our emergency response teams come alongside first responders. A lot of times we're asked to manage the walk-up volunteers. We also manage all the donations that are coming in, because most of the people in these areas, a church or a pastor or somebody will try to, offer his parking lot to do things, but they really don't have the expertise that we kind of bring to the table. And so we try to basically bring some order and logistics to a world of chaos. So while the first responders are, saving people's lives, we're actually, setting up the infrastructure and putting together the teams to do the chainsaw teams or the tarping of the roofs and all that. And so we do that. And then the last response team we have are prayer and support teams. And these are the people that are the shoulders to cry on. When you have a victim, a lot of people just want somebody to talk to them and hold their hand, or, get them some food or water. And so this team does that. And then when they're not helping a victim, they're providing food for the first responders or the different teams, or water or whatever it may be. And so all in all, that's what we do as an organization on a regular basis. Now, how does that relate to COVID-19? Well, number one thing I would tell you is we're still doing all of that because we are who we say we are. And so just because we've had to shut down the building at the governor's orders doesn't mean that we're not regularly having our mentoring sessions. We're doing intakes every day. In fact, our intakes have picked up even more since the shelter in place has gone in. So we're talking to people. We're still assessing where they are in their life. We're starting to mentor them and start to provide some guidance. And a lot of these people, they don't have television. Some of them don't have the ability to understand what's going on. And so we're really basically trying to tell people how to stay safe and take care of themselves until we're able to do even more with them. So that is definitely going on. The second initiative that we're focusing on right now is that the emergency management teams are in direct contact with me hourly. And so when someone gets diagnosed with COVID-19 right now, and they don't have family members or a support system in place, we want them to stay in quarantine. And so these groups are being forwarded to us. We're getting calls directly from them, but we're also getting it from the emergency management group. But these are people that basically don't have the people that can run an errand for them, get groceries to them, get essential items. And we don't want them to break quarantine. So if they reach out to us and we know what they're doing, we actually have volunteers that are getting the stuff that they need. They're going and dropping it off on the front porch. Obviously, their safety is number one. So we want to make sure that we don't put anybody in harm's way. But going to a front porch and dropping off toilet paper and some food, you don't ever put yourself at risk, and you're actually keeping somebody in quarantine, which protects all of us. And so that's another initiative we have. I will tell you that is starting to really spread out. Each county is a little different. Most of the direct contact with them, but the different levels of response are based off of how this thing starts to spread. So obviously Smith County is the biggest area right now, and so we have more interaction there than we do any counties. But Cherokee and some of the other counties are starting to see more and more cases, and so we're developing a volunteer network to where we have people in all these different counties. So I don't have to send somebody from Smith County to Rusk County to take care of somebody, because you're probably going to have to go back a couple of different times throughout this process to make sure that these people are taken care of. So that's the second initiative. And the third initiative, which is actually, we're getting ready to announce it, and I'm sure by the time you get this all done, it'll be out there, is we were contacted by the Texas Emergency Response and Smith County specifically, and we have been asked to provide a respite facility for first responders. And so we are going to be taking over the Victory Village out at UT Tyler, which is where students are normally, it's like an apartment complex. Mm-hmm. And we're going to be taking over all of those buildings and actually turning them into a respite for first responders. And so we'll basically, if you've got fire, police, EMS, or medical that are working long shifts and it takes too long to go home, or they're concerned that if they go home, they might bring something home with them, and they don't want to risk an elderly member of the family or a child or whatever it may be, they will have a place to go and be able to take a shower and get to sleep and have a good meal prepared for them and wash their clothes and do whatever they may be. And so the Hand Up Network is actually going to be setting that up and overseeing and running that for this area.
Fantastic. That's awesome. Well, let me ask you this, Sam. A lot of the folks that are listening, they understand just the overall, especially someone loses their job. That's a tragedy in and of itself. But one of the things that my heart is weighing on my heart is these parents that, especially, okay, I don't care, to be honest with you, what your income level is. If all of a sudden your 5, 7, and 8-year-old are in the house all day with you, and you're not used to that, and you're being asked to be a second, grade teacher for the first time, the level of stress, because that person, now they're looking at potential job loss, income loss. Now they're trying to keep a brave face for their children. But then you take that into some of those lower socioeconomic neighborhoods and places where all of a sudden the children are home all day. Uh, what can be some of the fallout for some of those people, and are we able to help through our mentoring program in particular? Like if we have moms or dads that we're mentoring, and it seems to me like that would be such a critical area right now to help them deal with the stress of that and to maintain their sense of just sanity, to be a good parent and make sure that they keep calm in the house and give them some of the tools to make that happen. Talk a little bit about some of those things that we don't see that much of, but is going on as a result of this.
Well, I will tell you, it's an issue we deal with all the time anyway. The network part of the Hand Up Network, we work with partners that do a lot of things really well, and we actually have signed agreements with them. And so, the Tyler Literacy Council, for instance, Literacy Council of Tyler, they do our GED and ESL training. But what we run into with all of our clients is that parenting is a very difficult job anyway, and a lot of parents look forward to the fact that the kid gets to go off to school and the teachers take care of the kids for a while and kind of give them a respite. Even when they're at work, it's kind of nice to get a break. But now I think everybody is starting to realize that, wow, we love our teachers and we don't love them enough
Right.
because of the stuff that they do. But the key thing is that stress becomes extremely high because, one, you're not sure how you're going to actually put food on the table. Two, you don't know how to handle and deal with kids that are on top of you 24 hours a day. And three, you're just not really sure, what you can do without getting them sick. I mean, there's nothing worse to a parent than have a child that gets sick. And so a lot of our time is spent really just walking people through and giving them a voice of reason. Most people will do whatever it takes to make sure they take care of their children and their parents and whoever it may be. But a lot of them just don't know what to do. They've never been in this situation. So, there is a lot of phone calls right now and a lot of video conferences where it's just a matter of kind of walking them off the ledge a little bit. They're just a little crazy and it's nuts. And, I feel like I'm falling down as a parent. Well, no, you're doing exactly what all the other parents are doing. It's a tough job. And so there is no question that this type of environment, this type of restriction on people being able to get out and around is extremely difficult. I would also tell you that I think it's really important for everyone to know that getting out and getting the exercise in, get those kids out and let them ride that bicycle down the street and back, or, go to the park and throw the Frisbee with them, or throw a baseball or a football or a ball of some sort. Just do something to kind of get some of that energy out is extremely important, not just for the kids, but it's also important for mom and dad to just get a little fresh air, get that vitamin D in their system and so forth. So there's a lot of things like that we discuss. A lot of our mentors have a lot of backgrounds in this area that can also help. And we also, we work very closely with Austin Bank and a few of the other banking groups to provide financial literacy training.
Yeah.
I tell you, in today's day and time, that's going to become an extremely important thing. And I've already had 3 or 4 phone calls today with my Austin Reed partners, or excuse me, my Austin Bank partners, because they really care about people, and they're the type of people that'll sit down and look at your individual situation and say, you know what, you need to look at this, you need to consider this. And for people that have never been there and done that, they've kind of lived from paycheck to paycheck, and all of a sudden that paycheck doesn't show up.
Yeah.
Man, that's a pretty overbearing type of situation.
Yeah, no, I was just talking to one of my closest friends that has done a lot of handiwork for me for years, and he works for a lot of the property management companies. And right now, they're having to not do nearly the work that they did before because a lot of the renters are just saying, "I can't pay my rent," and so therefore it's just a trickle down. It goes throughout the whole system, and so it's scary. And by the way, I recognize that Austin Reed slip because I sold Austin Reed suits at our beloved when I was at our beloved SFA, of which I know you're an alum as well at Mize. So whenever you said Austin Reed, a lot of the folks might have not known that's a Heart Marks brand. So
it is. Yeah. I can't tell you how many training sessions I did with Austin Reed over the years, and I spent a lot of time in the UK with them as well. But yeah, that was a slip, and you definitely caught it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, Sam, how can the listeners help the Hand Up Network?
Well, there are three areas, obviously. We need volunteers. The good news about being a volunteer is we just need you to go sign up. We're going to reach out to you and talk to you about what you'd like to volunteer. We'll talk about a variety of different ways, whether it's right now with the COVID-19, you might be on call to basically go pick up some groceries and drop it off on a porch. And if you're willing to do that, we want to know that. But as we move forward, there's going to be a lot of other areas. Obviously, what we're doing with the respite care with first responders, we're going to need some help with that and things of that nature. And so we just need people to be in the database that says, hey, I'm willing to volunteer, but we'll reach out to you. And if you're available, great. And if you're not available, fine. If you can't do it, fine. I mean, it doesn't matter. But we have to have you in that system. The second thing is that, we need donations. We need the resources. People are scared. They've all gone home. They're in their cocoon. They don't know how they're going to make ends meet. And we totally get that and understand it. But there are people that do have the ability to continue to help and support what we're trying to do. And, it's a very difficult situation. We have expenses that continue to happen. And so we need the financial support to keep coming. The spigot basically got turned off entirely about 3 weeks ago because everybody circled their wagons and they're worried about themselves and trying to take care of that. And it's very understandable. But as we start to work our way through this, I sure hope that people that have the ability may not be able to volunteer, but could potentially help support those that do would be extremely important. And we appreciate that. The one thing I will tell you that I know for a fact that everybody can do, and that is we need your prayers. And if you could add us and those that we're trying to serve onto your prayer list, we would really appreciate that because we're seeing some pretty desperate situations. I mean, you're scared if you're sheltered at home. Imagine if you're sheltered at home with 2 kids and you all 3 have been diagnosed with this virus. And we have cases like that right now in East Texas. And so those are the people that not only are we bringing food and essential supplies, but we're also providing the counseling and the support to try to help them get through it. Now, on a positive note, keep in mind that over 90% of the people that get diagnosed with this at home are able to recover from it at home. And so there's a lot of positives that are going on, but there are some that basically have some historic illnesses or some disease issues that are more susceptible. And we're going to lose some people in East Texas, and it's going to be a very difficult time, not only obviously for them and their close family, but all of us, because we don't want to lose a single person. And so whatever we can do to help them, whether it be volunteering, whether it be donating to help those that can, or just being able to pray for everybody, I think it's so important to try to do all three if you can.
Well, and then the best way to donate through the website, or what's the best way to go about that?
Well, you can go to our website, handupnetwork.com. And you can, there's a way to donate, there's a way to volunteer. If you want to volunteer, click on volunteer, scroll down to the bottom, it says sign up to volunteer. The volunteer application is pretty thorough. The reason it is that way is we like to get an idea of who we're talking to and what your expertise is and background. We also want to know what limitations you have so that we don't put you in a bad spot. And so, later on, if you're volunteering on a response team at a tornado, we don't want people that can't carry 30 pounds to be out there carrying more than 30 pounds. If there are people that have heart conditions and things of that nature, we just need to know that up front so that we make sure that we put you in a position to be able to help and also do exactly what you came to do. You're never going to volunteer at the Hand Up Network in something that you're going to show up and you're going to stand around and do nothing. Right. Our goal is to make exactly what you're going to do before you get here. And then you're going to come here and you're going to hit the ground running and you're going to be ready to roll. And usually what I tell everybody is I hope you come back to me and tell me you're physically exhausted, because that means that you came and did exactly what you came to do.
Awesome. Well, and look, Sam, one of the things I'm trying to do is to post more messages and use the podcast and any means of communication I have to one, help lift people's spirits, to give them guidance on just the things that I do to keep my head straight, to stay physically fit, to be mentally prepared for the road ahead. And also to do good for organizations I believe in. So if there's a way, whenever someone either signs up as a volunteer or if they make a donation, if there's a memo area where they can just put push play for every person that signs up as a volunteer or makes a donation of any size. I don't care if it's $1, $100, $1,000. I'm going to get with you. You give me the list, and I'm going to send them a copy of my book, Push Play, Taking Your Life Off Pause, for free, because a lot of what's in that book, even though I mean, I literally wrote a chapter, the greatest catastrophe that ever happened. A lot of people, the book was for those people that they might have had to reinvent themselves because they were fired, they lost their job, they were laid off, they had just all of a sudden reached a point in life where they had an ambition or a goal that they didn't think they could pursue because that time had passed them. And my message is no, it has not. And so there's just a lot of tools and things in that book that I think are prevalent for a time such as this. Goodness knows it's not because I wrote it. I'm not that smart of a guy. My Sulphur Springs high school education all the way through to SMU did not make me a good author. But because I'm from Sulphur Springs and I'm a fifth generation East Texan, I use short sentences and small words, so it's a quick read. But in all seriousness, I want to offer that. So let's get together. I will also put something, and they'll hear it through right now, this message, but I'm also going to put something at the beginning of the podcast to let people know that any donation, any volunteer of any kind, let's get together and just make some notation, push play, just to let us know you want the book, and you send me a note and I will get that to them. It's just a thank you as a board member, and to say we appreciate what you're willing to do. And I want to say thank you for your leadership, Sam, at the Hand Up Network. And we're proud of you. And anything you ever need to use this platform for, if you need to get a message out or whatever, brother, it's yours.
Well, I really appreciate it, Jason. I would say that if people are interested in kind of staying on the pulse of what's happening with us and what's happening in the community, have them go to our Facebook or social media sites at HandUpNet. I put a daily update out there of kind of what's happening after I have all these calls and everything. I try to just put the straight scoop out there so people understand exactly what's happening. And it's a great way for people to kind of stay engaged with what's going on and kind of cutting through all the red tape. And so please do go out there and follow us and keep astute with that. And, we respond. I actually had someone send me a note yesterday saying, do you have anybody that can help us in El Paso? And, my response was, well, we don't really cover that area right now, but, send me an instant message. And wouldn't you know it, I actually have some friends that are in the medical community in El Paso, and there's an 80-year-old lady that is legally blind that needs groceries that are getting delivered to her today because, somebody reached out to us in Tyler, Texas. So God works in amazing ways, and that happens because we're staying communicating, we're connecting with each other through whatever channel necessary.
Fantastic. Well, Sam, thank you for taking the time to come on the podcast. Thank you for what you're doing, and Godspeed, brother.
I really appreciate the time, Jason. Thank you.
Thank you, man.